Iranian security forces have deployed troops and armoured vehicles to surround the grave of Mahsa Amini ahead of the first anniversary of her death. Now, her death in police custody, well, it sparked the biggest anti-regime protest in the country in 4 decades. Well, joining me now is Iranian-American author and historian and women's rights activist. It's Nina Ansary. A great pleasure to have you on the show today. I wonder your thoughts a year on from Mahsa's death. What do you think's changed in Iran for women, if indeed anything has changed?
Thank you very much for having me and raising awareness of the 1-year anniversary of the death in custody of Mahsa Amini. Leah, much has changed. The barrier of fear among Iranian civil society has completely eroded. As you mentioned, this is the largest display of unity against the Islamic Republic in its 44-year history. These protests are unprecedented because even though they ebb and flow, they show no signs of slowing down despite brutal repression. They also comprise a broad segment of society and include a lot of Iran's youth. And they have essentially evolved into a fundamental challenge and an existential threat to the survival and the legitimacy of this regime.
And I guess what it also shows, and get your thoughts on whether you agree, is that Mahsa's death also showed that many women are not bending to the regime in Iran, and one would think that's a positive thing.
Correct. They are not only not bending, Iranian women continue to take to the streets, continue to defy the mandatory availing laws despite the harsh repercussions. They continue with their symbolic and powerful acts of civil disobedience. And they are determined to change the history of Iran, not only for themselves, but also for all Iranians.
But I wonder your thoughts then on how dangerous it is to be a woman today in Iran.
It is very dangerous. First of all, you're dealing with a regime that has enshrined the inferior status of women in the Islamic constitution and the civil code. This is a gender apartheid regime, for lack of a better word. And women face unimaginable atrocities, from harsh prison sentences to upwards of 74 lashes for defying the bare basic laws, including singing and dancing in public and not complying with the regime's archaic and antiquated gender ideology.
And despite all of this, women in Iran are still managing to maintain their autonomy. What do you think of this? Do you have much contact with women in Iran still? In fact, do you ever feel like you'd ever go back?
Well, would I ever go back? I hope to one day go back, like many people like myself who have been living in exile since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. I have been and continue to be in contact with courageous women's rights activists. The Iranians, especially women and girls, want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be supported. So it's imperative and crucial that we continue to remain vigilant and give them a voice, especially for those of us on the outside who don't suffer harsh repercussions for using our platforms.
So am I right in saying that there is a full-blown feminist movement currently in Iran?
Yes, that's absolutely true. In fact, this is the first women-led revolution of our time.
What do you think is the breakthrough? Because one would think maybe education, because that leads to empowerment. And as it stands, women are not banned from education. So what's the breakthrough, do you think, looking to the future?
Leah, absolutely. As you say, education has been the #1 empowering medium for women and girls in Iran. In fact, women have been outnumbering men in higher education for decades, comprising 2/3 of all university graduates. They stand at a 97% literacy rate and account for 70% of STEM graduates, which is one of the highest percentages in the world. And not only that, despite this environment, despite all the gender discriminatory policies and laws and barriers, women have excelled in practically every field. Despite the harsh realities, they have become award-winning scientists, award-winning authors, documentarians, even the first woman to ever win the Fields Medal, also known as the Nobel Prize of Mathematics, the late Professor Maryam Mirzakhani, was born and raised in the Islamic Republic. This is a true testament to the resilience and determination of the women in Iran.
Nina Ansary, thank you so much for your time. A great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.